I am Jacqueline Williams, 67 years old, and I never thought my own daughter would try to steal the home her father and I built together. For 40 years, this house has been my sanctuary, filled with memories of Frank and our children growing up. When Sarah arrived with documents claiming they were for a health plan, I knew something was wrong. I signed them anyway, watching her face transform from fake concern to triumphant cruelty when she declared, "Now the house is mine, and you are homeless." Little did she know what I had prepared on that last page. If you are watching this, please let me know where you are from. In the comments, hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I outsmarted my own daughter. This house on Maple Street has been my home for over 40 years. Frank and I purchased the land when we were just newlyweds, with dreams bigger than our bank account. He was starting his carpentry business, and I was working night shifts as a nurse at County General. We saved every penny until we could afford to build our dream home. Frank designed it himself, a beautiful 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch where I still drink my morning coffee. He hand-carved the banister on our staircase, installed the kitchen cabinets, and built the window seat in the living room where I read to our children on rainy afternoons. Frank passed away 5 years ago after a brutal battle with pancreatic cancer. I nursed him through every painful moment, just as I had cared for thousands of patients throughout my 40-year career. Losing him left a hole in my heart, but I found comfort in remaining in the home we had created together. Every corner holds a memory, from the height markers for our children penciled inside the pantry door to the small dent in the dining room wall from when Thomas crashed his new bicycle indoors on Christmas morning. We raised 3 children in this house. Thomas, my middle child, now 42, moved to Seattle for a tech job 15 years ago. He calls weekly and visits twice a year with his husband David. They are loving and attentive, despite the distance, always asking if I need anything. Amanda, my youngest, at 39 lives, just 30 minutes away with her husband Peter and their twins. She struggles financially since Peter lost his construction job during the economic downturn, but she visits often and helps with household tasks I find challenging since my knee replacement. Then there is Sarah, my oldest at 44. From childhood, she was different from her siblings, more concerned with appearances and material possessions. While Thomas played baseball and Amanda excelled in science fairs, Sarah focused on having the right clothes and befriending children from wealthy families. Frank and I worried about her materialistic tendencies, but hoped she would outgrow them. After college, Sarah married Jeffrey Pearson, a real estate developer with a flashy car and expensive tastes. They live in a gated community with their 2 teenage children, Alicia and Jordan, who rarely visit their grandmother. Over the years, Sarah has made numerous financial demands, from asking for loans she never repays to expecting lavish gifts. When Frank and I refused to finance their vacation home 10 years ago, Sarah barely spoke to us for months. After Frank died, Sarah suddenly became more attentive, calling more often and stopping by unexpectedly. Initially, I welcomed the attention, believing grief had changed her perspective. However, I gradually noticed her questions often centered around the house, my finances, and whether I had updated my will. She would comment on how big the house was for just one person and how much work it must be to maintain. 6 months ago, Sarah began visiting weekly, something she had never done before. She started bringing up retirement communities, leaving brochures on my coffee table about active senior living. She would point out minor maintenance issues in the house and suggest I was becoming unable to manage on my own. I remembered how Frank always said Sarah had her eye on our property. The house sits on an acre of land in what has become a desirable neighborhood as the city expanded. Developers have purchased and subdivided several nearby properties, building luxury townhomes that sell for substantial profits. Frank once joked that Sarah probably had a calculator running in her head every time she visited, tallying up what the land alone would be worth. I tried to dismiss these thoughts as unfair to my daughter. Surely my own child would not be plotting to take my home from me. But as her visits increased and her questions became more pointed, I could no longer ignore the signs. When she started bringing up her own financial troubles, mentioning Jordan's upcoming college tuition and Alicia's car accident that increased their insurance premiums, I recognized the familiar pattern of Sarah laying groundwork for another financial request. What I never expected was that this time she would not simply ask for money. She wanted everything. The first clear warning came during a Sunday dinner at my home 3 months ago. Sarah arrived with a glossy brochure for Sunny Pines Assisted Living Community. Over dessert, she casually mentioned that her friend Melanie had just moved her mother there. "They have nurses on staff, Mom," she said, spooning apple pie into her mouth, "and emergency call buttons in every room. You know, for when you fall." "I have never fallen, Sarah," I replied, confused by the implication. "And my health is excellent, according to Dr. Patterson just last month." "Prevention is better than cure," Sarah said dismissively. "Besides, this house is just too big for you now. All these stairs cannot be good for your knees." My knee replacement surgery had been 2 years prior, and I had fully recovered with diligent physical therapy. I walked 3 miles daily and took water aerobics classes twice a week at the community center. There was absolutely no medical reason I could not continue living independently. A week later, I returned from my grocery shopping to find Sarah in my driveway with a man in a suit. They were walking the perimeter of my property, and Sarah was gesturing toward the large oak tree Frank had planted when Thomas was born. "Sarah, what is going on?" I called, struggling with my grocery bags. Sarah looked startled, then quickly composed herself. "Oh, Mom, this is Martin Williams. He is a friend of Jeffrey. He was just admiring your beautiful home." Martin handed me a business card that identified him as a real estate appraiser. Sarah quickly took the card from my hand and hustled Martin to his car, whispering intensely. I pretended not to notice, taking my groceries inside while my mind raced. That evening I called Thomas in Seattle to share my concerns. He listened patiently, then sighed. "Mom, you know how Sarah is. She has always been money hungry, but would she really try to push you out of your home? That seems extreme, even for her." "I hope I am wrong," I told him. "But something does not feel right." 2 weeks later, Sarah and Jeffrey came for dinner. Throughout the meal, Jeffrey kept mentioning how outdated my kitchen was. "These cabinets must be from the 80s, he said, rapping his knuckles on the oak cabinets Frank had crafted. "And this countertop material is practically antique. You could increase the value by 30% with just a few updates." "I like my kitchen just as it is," I replied firmly. "Frank built these cabinets himself." "Sentiment does not increase property values," Jeffrey said with a laugh that did not reach his eyes. "Sarah and I could help you modernize this place, make it more sellable." "I have no intention of selling my home," I stated clearly. Sarah and Jeffrey exchanged a look I could not quite interpret. Later, as they were leaving, I overheard Sarah on her phone in the driveway. "Yes, the property is at least 3/4 of an acre. The zoning would allow for 4, maybe 5 townhomes if we demolish the existing structure," she said. "Mom is being stubborn, but we are working on it. The potential profit margin is too good to ignore." My blood ran cold. I quietly closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. The existing structure Sarah so casually mentioned demolishing was my beloved home, the place where she had grown up, where her father had invested years of craftsmanship. The next day, my neighbor Eleanor came over for coffee, concerned. "Jackie, is everything all right? I saw Sarah with a man yesterday who was taking photos of your house. When I asked what they were doing, she said they were documenting some damage to the foundation that needs repair. Is your foundation having issues?" "Not that I know of," I replied, my suspicion growing. "The inspection last year gave the house a clean bill of health." "Well, the man had West Side Development on his jacket," Eleanor added. "That is the company that tore down the Johnsons' place and built those ugly townhouses." That afternoon, I called Harold Finch, a retired attorney who had been friends with Frank since college. I explained the situation, and he listened gravely. "Jackie, it sounds like Sarah may be planning something underhanded. Do you have your property deeds and financial documents secured?" I realized with horror that my important papers were in the study desk, easily accessible if Sarah used the spare key I had given her for emergencies. That evening, I collected all my essential documents and drove to Amanda's house, asking her to keep them in her home safe without telling Sarah. Amanda looked troubled. "Mom, has Sarah said something about your house?" "Not directly," I admitted, "but there have been too many coincidences to ignore. She mentioned to Peter last month that she might have a business opportunity coming up that would solve their financial problems," Amanda said slowly. "I did not think much of it then, but now I wonder." I drove home with a heavy heart, feeling the first deep pangs of betrayal from my oldest child. That night I cried myself to sleep, clutching the photo of Frank and me on the day we moved into our newly built home, young and full of hopes for our family's future. How had we raised a daughter capable of such calculation? Where had we gone wrong? The situation with Sarah deteriorated rapidly over the following weeks. One Tuesday afternoon, I returned from my book club to find Sarah in my bedroom going through my closet. Several boxes were stacked by the door filled with winter clothes and photo albums. "What are you doing with my things?" I demanded. Sarah jumped, then quickly smiled. "Just helping you organize, Mom. This closet is so cluttered. I am boxing up things you do not need immediate access to." "I did not ask for your help, and I want those boxes unpacked right now," I said firmly. Sarah's pleasant expression slipped for a moment. "You are being ridiculous. This house is full of junk that needs sorting. Dad has been gone for 5 years, and you still have all his clothes taking up space. Those are my decisions to make, not yours," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. "This is my home, and these are my belongings." "For now," Sarah muttered under her breath, clearly not intending for me to hear. That comment kept me awake that night, staring at the ceiling fan Frank had installed the summer our air conditioning broke during a heat wave. I changed the locks the next morning. The following Sunday, Sarah organized a family dinner at her house, something she rarely did. Thomas could not attend as he was in Europe for a work conference, but Amanda and Peter came with their twins. Jeffrey grilled steaks, while Sarah showed off her recently renovated kitchen with marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that cost more than most people's cars. Over dinner, Sarah made an announcement. "I wanted everyone to know that I am taking steps to ensure Mom's future is secure. As the oldest, I feel it is my responsibility to make sure she is properly cared for in her golden years." "What exactly does that mean?" Amanda asked, setting down her fork. "Just that I am exploring options for more appropriate living situations, financial management, that sort of thing," Sarah replied vaguely. "Mom should not have to worry about home maintenance, property taxes, and utilities at her age. I manage my finances and my home perfectly well. I interjected feeling ambushed, and I have no intention of moving." "We will discuss it privately," Mom Sarah said with a tight smile. "This is not the time." Later that evening, my phone rang. It was Thomas calling from his hotel in Brussels. "Mom, is everything okay? Amanda just texted me about some weird dinner conversation about your living situation." I explained what had happened, and Thomas was silent for a moment. "I had a strange call from Sarah last week," he finally said. "She asked if I would be interested in buying her out of her portion of your house after." Well, she did not finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. "I have not changed my will, Thomas. The house is to be sold and divided equally between the three of you after I am gone. Sarah has no portion to sell now," I explained, feeling sick. "That is what I thought," Thomas replied. "Mom, something is definitely not right. I am coming home next week after my conference. Do not sign anything before I get there." 2 days later, I was dusting the living room bookshelves when I knocked Sarah's purse off the sofa. As I picked it up, several glossy brochures spilled out. They were not for active senior communities, as she had been leaving around my house. These were for Evergreen Care Center, a nursing home specializing in memory care and assisted living for seniors with significant health issues. When I confronted Sarah, she became defensive, then switched tactics, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Mom, you have been so forgetful lately. Last week you could not remember where you put your car keys." "They were in my coat pocket, where I always keep them," I replied. "See, you do not even remember that I found them in the refrigerator," Sarah insisted, "and you left the stove on overnight last month." I had done no such thing, and we both knew it. Sarah was gaslighting me, trying to make me doubt my own mind. The realization sent chills down my spine. The next day, Sarah arrived with a man she introduced as Edward, a financial advisor who specializes in senior planning. I reluctantly allowed them in, curious to see what new angle Sarah was working. Edward spent 45 minutes discussing various investment strategies and retirement planning options before casually mentioning, "Of course, your largest asset is this house. Many seniors in your position choose to liquidate their real estate holdings to fund their retirement care." When I asked for his credentials, he handed me a business card for Westside Realty, the same development company Eleanor had mentioned, seeing around my property. He was a real estate agent, not a financial advisor at all. I asked them both to leave immediately. Sarah protested, but I stood firm. "Mom, you are being paranoid," she snapped as I held the door open. "We are just trying to help." "I do not need the kind of help you are offering," I replied coldly. That evening I called Harold again, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial the number. "Jackie, this has gone far enough," he said after I explained the latest events. "Sarah appears to be laying groundwork to claim you are mentally incompetent. That would allow her to petition for guardianship, which would give her control of your assets, including your house." "Can she do that?" I asked, horrified. "Not if you are proactive in protecting yourself," Harold replied. "I think it is time we get some proper legal help. My former colleague Diane Summers specializes in elder law. We should meet with her as soon as possible." The fear and anxiety I felt were overwhelming. Each night I lay awake, wondering how my own child could betray me so thoroughly. I remembered Sarah as a little girl sitting on Frank's shoulders as he walked around the foundation of our house during construction. I remembered teaching her to bake cookies in our kitchen, helping her get ready for prom in her bedroom upstairs, nursing her through chicken pox and broken hearts. Where had that little girl gone? And how could I protect myself from the woman she had become? The following Monday, I met Harold at the offices of Summers Legal Services. Diane Summers was a sharp-minded woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened carefully as I detailed Sarah's increasingly concerning behavior. "Unfortunately, Mrs. Williams, what you are describing is not uncommon," Diane said when I finished. "Financial elder abuse often comes from family members, particularly when property is involved." "What can I do?" I asked. "I do not want to believe my daughter would try to steal my home, but the evidence is becoming impossible to ignore." "First, we need to ensure your legal affairs are in order," Diane explained. "You mentioned your will divides your assets equally among your 3 children after your passing. That is separate from the issue of someone trying to gain control of your property while you are alive." Over the next 2 hours, Diane outlined a comprehensive strategy to protect my assets. We updated my will with specific language that would make it more difficult to contest. I signed a durable power of attorney, designating Thomas as my decision-maker. In the event, I became incapacitated with Amanda as the secondary agent. Most importantly, I signed documents clearly stating my desire to remain in my home and my current mental competency, supported by a letter from my physician confirming my excellent cognitive health. "These measures will make it much more difficult for anyone to claim you are incapable of managing your affairs," Diane assured me. "However, we should also prepare for more direct attempts to gain control of your property." That was when Harold suggested the special document that would become my salvation. "Jackie, if Sarah is desperate enough, she might try to trick you into signing over the deed to your house," he said gravely. "We need a safety net." Diane nodded thoughtfully, then outlined a plan so clever yet simple that it might save my home if Sarah attempted anything truly underhanded. "We will create a document that can be attached as the final page of any property transfer papers," she explained. "This page will contain legal language invalidating any property transfer if there is evidence of coercion, misrepresentation, or if you were not fully informed of what you were signing." "Would that really work?" I asked, hope rising for the first time in weeks. "It is not foolproof," Diane admitted. "But if someone tries to trick you into signing property documents, this could provide grounds to invalidate the transaction. The key is ensuring this page is included with anything you sign." We spent another hour creating this special document with specific language tailored to my situation. I would keep several notarized copies with me at all times. The plan was simple. If Sarah ever presented documents for me to sign, I would insist on reviewing them first, then casually add my special page to the back before signing anything. As I left Diane's office that afternoon, I felt simultaneously more secure and profoundly sad. I had just spent $3,000 and 4 hours of my time creating legal protections against my own daughter. What would Frank think if he knew our family had come to this? That night I sat in Frank's old armchair, looking through photo albums from when the children were small. There was Sarah on her 5th birthday, beaming with chocolate cake around her mouth. Sarah at her high school graduation, proud in her cap and gown with Frank and me on either side. Sarah dancing with her father at her wedding, both of them smiling through tears. Where had we gone wrong with her? Had we spoiled her too much as our firstborn? Had we not taught her enough about the value of family over material possessions? Frank and I had always lived modestly, despite having comfortable savings. We valued experiences over things, choosing family camping trips over expensive vacations, home-cooked meals over fancy restaurants. Sarah had rejected those values from an early age, always wanting more, always comparing our lifestyle unfavorably to her wealthier friends. Jeffrey had only reinforced those tendencies with his focus on status and appearances. I was still awake at midnight when my phone rang. It was Amanda. "Mom, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice hushed. Sarah called me tonight. She said she is concerned about your mental state and thinks we need to consider getting guardianship for your own protection." My heart sank. "What did you say?" "I told her she was out of her mind," Amanda replied fiercely. "You are sharper than both of us combined." Then she said something about how the house was too valuable an asset to risk with your declining decision-making skills. "Mom, I think she is planning something." "I know, sweetheart," I said gently. "I have already taken steps to protect myself." After explaining the measures I had put in place, Amanda sounded relieved, but still worried. "You should not have to defend yourself against your own family," she said, her voice breaking. "This is not what Dad would have wanted." "No, it is not." I agreed, tears filling my eyes. "But we need to be prepared for whatever Sarah might try next." Over the next 2 weeks, I made additional preparations. I installed security cameras around my house, documenting who came and went. I gathered evidence of Sarah's suspicious behavior, saving text messages and emails where she made concerning comments about my mental state or living situation. I also made sure my financial documents were in perfect order, creating a comprehensive inventory of my assets and keeping copies with both Thomas and my attorney. If Sarah was building a case that I was becoming incompetent, I would have overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Thomas flew in from Seattle as promised and spent 3 days helping me organize everything. He was furious about Sarah's behavior, but cautioned me against a direct confrontation. "She will just deny everything, Mom," he explained. "We need to wait until she makes a concrete move, then respond with the legal protections you have put in place." The waiting was the hardest part. Each day brought a mixture of dread and resolve as I wondered when Sarah would make her move. I kept Harold and Diane updated on any new developments and carried my special document with me everywhere. I could not shake the terrible feeling that my own daughter was circling like a predator, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Despite the stress, I maintained my normal routine, refusing to give Sarah any ammunition to claim I was acting erratically. I continued my volunteer work at the hospital, attended my book club and water aerobics classes, and had friends over for dinner. Outwardly, I was the same Jacqueline Williams. I had always been a retired nurse, enjoying her well-earned golden years in the home she loved. Inside, I was preparing for battle with the person I had once carried in my womb and held in my arms. The person Frank and I had loved unconditionally from her first breath. The thought broke my heart daily, but I knew I needed to stay strong and clear-headed for whatever came next. The day Sarah finally made her move was deceptively beautiful. It was a Tuesday in early October, with trees along Maple Street, showing their first hints of gold and crimson. I had spent the morning planting tulip bulbs in the front garden, looking forward to the spring blooms Frank had always loved. When Sarah's silver SUV pulled into the driveway around 11:30, I felt a strange sense of calm. Something about her expression, too bright and eager, told me this was the day we had been anticipating. I removed my gardening gloves, washed my hands, and prepared to face whatever scheme she had devised. "Mom, you look wonderful," Sarah exclaimed as I opened the door, kissing my cheek with unusual enthusiasm. She was dressed more formally than her typical visits warranted, in a navy blue blazer and pearl earrings. "I brought lunch from that Italian place you like." She held up a bag from Salvatore's, my favorite restaurant, though I could not recall ever mentioning this preference to Sarah specifically. Amanda must have told her. "How thoughtful," I said, letting her inside. "What brings you by on a Tuesday? I thought you had yoga on Tuesdays." "I canceled it." "This is more important," Sarah replied, setting the food on the kitchen counter. She placed her leather portfolio beside it, patting it significantly. I have some papers for you to sign, Mom. It is going to make everything so much easier for all of us." "What kind of papers?" I asked, my guard immediately up. Sarah's smile was practiced the same one she used when trying to sell overpriced candles for her children's school fundraisers. "Just some documents for a health insurance plan I am setting up for you. Better coverage than Medicare, with additional benefits for home health care if you ever need it." "That sounds expensive," I commented, serving plates for our lunch while watching her carefully. "You know I am comfortable with my current coverage." "This is my gift to you," Sarah insisted, her voice taking on a rehearsed quality. "Jeffrey and I want to make sure you have the best care possible. All you need to do is sign a few forms to enroll." We ate lunch with Sarah, keeping the conversation deliberately light, asking about my garden and book club while avoiding any substantive topics. I played along, waiting to see how she would present the actual documents she clearly intended me to sign. After lunch, she cleaned up with unusual thoroughness, even wiping down the countertops before suggesting we move to the living room. "Now, about those papers," she said, opening her portfolio. "It is just standard enrollment forms for the premium health plan. Nothing complicated." She spread several official-looking documents on the coffee table. I pretended to examine them casually while my heart pounded. These were not health insurance forms. They were property transfer documents, cleverly disguised with a cover sheet mentioning healthcare benefits, but the subsequent pages clearly outlined transferring ownership of my house to Sarah. "These do not look like health insurance enrollment forms," I said quietly, giving her a chance to back down. "Oh, there is some legal language about asset protection," Sarah said dismissively. "It is all standard. The health plan requires some financial information to determine coverage levels." I nodded, as if this made sense, then reached into my purse beside the sofa. "Let me get my reading glasses so I can review these properly." Along with my glasses, I removed one of my special, notarized pages, keeping it partially concealed in my hand. "Would you mind getting me a glass of water while I look these over? My throat is a bit dry." Looking slightly annoyed at the delay but unable to refuse such a simple request, Sarah went to the kitchen. I quickly examined the documents more thoroughly, confirming my suspicions. These papers would transfer full ownership of my home to Sarah, with no protections or conditions for my continued residence. There was also a power of attorney document giving Sarah control over all my financial decisions. Working quickly, I added my special page to the back of the stack just as Sarah returned with the water. "Everything looks in order." I lied, taking the water from her. "You are right, it is just standard paperwork." Sarah's relief was palpable. She quickly produced a pen from her portfolio. "Great, just sign. Here, here, and initial here." I signed where indicated, making sure to include signatures on my special final page. Sarah watched intently, barely containing her excitement. When I finished, Sarah gathered the papers with barely concealed eagerness, not even bothering to check what I had signed. She slipped them into her portfolio without examining the final page I had added. "Wonderful. I will get these processed right away," she said, standing up and collecting her things with unusual haste. "You have made the right decision, Mom. This health plan will give you peace of mind." I remained seated, looking up at my daughter calmly. "Before you go, Sarah, I would like to understand exactly what I just signed." Something in my tone must have alerted her, because Sarah's expression changed subtly. The mask of daughterly concern slipped, revealing a flash of calculation before she composed herself. "I told you, Mom. It is for the premium health insurance plan." "Is that all?" I pressed quietly. We looked at each other for a long moment, the pretense between us growing thinner by the second, Then, perhaps believing the documents were safely in her possession and the deed was done, Sarah's demeanor transformed entirely. A smile spread across her face, no longer fake with pretend warmth, but genuinely triumphant, cold, satisfied. "Actually, Mom, you just signed the transfer of ownership for this house," she announced, her voice hardening as she patted her portfolio. "The property now legally belongs to me. Jeffrey and I will be generous, of course. We can discuss arrangements for your transition to Sunny Pines. They have an opening next month." I remained perfectly still, watching her. "I know this must be a shock," Sarah continued, mistaking my calm for stunned silence. "But it is for the best. This house is too big for you, and the property is worth too much to just sit here until you die. We have developers ready to break ground as soon as we close." "So, I am homeless now?" I asked quietly. Sarah had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable before shrugging. "Not homeless. You will have a nice room at Sunny Pines. Your Social Security will cover most of the monthly fees." "And what about the profit from selling my home? The home your father built?" "That is no longer your concern," Sarah replied dismissively. "Financial decisions are complicated. You would not understand the investments we have planned." I nodded slowly, then spoke the words I had been preparing for weeks. "Sarah, I think you should take a look at the last page of what you just had me sign." "What?" Sarah frowned, opening her portfolio and flipping through the papers impatiently. When she reached the final page, her expression transformed from confusion to disbelief to rage in the span of seconds. "What is this?" she demanded, waving my special document. "This was not in here when I prepared these papers." "It invalidates any property transfer if the signer was coerced or misled about the nature of the documents," I explained calmly. "Which I clearly was, since you represented them as health insurance forms when they were actually property transfer documents." Sarah's face flushed dark red. "You cannot do this. You signed the transfer." "Under false pretenses, which I can prove," I replied, gesturing to the security camera discreetly installed on my bookshelf. "Our entire conversation has been recorded, including your admission that you lied about the nature of the documents and your plans for my home." The smile disappeared instantly from Sarah's face, replaced by a look of stunned fury as she realized her scheme had not only failed, but had been anticipated and countered. Sarah stared at the security camera, then back at the document in her hand, her composure completely shattered. "You set me up," she whispered furiously. "No, Sarah. I protected myself from being set up. I corrected her. There is a significant difference." She began frantically flipping through the papers, as if searching for some loophole or escape clause. Finding none, she crumpled the invalidating document in her fist. "This will never hold up legally," she snapped. "You still signed the transfer." "Actually, it will hold up," I assured her. "That document was prepared by Diane Summers, one of the top elder law attorneys in the state. It has been properly notarized and filed with copies already in my attorney's possession. Destroying that copy will not change anything." Sarah threw the crumpled paper on the floor. "You have no idea what you are doing. This house is wasted on you. Do you know what the property alone is worth in this market? Almost $700,000. "I am well aware of my home's value, both financial and sentimental," I replied. "The question is, when did my daughter start seeing me as nothing but a barrier to her inheritance?" The front door opened before Sarah could respond. Jeffrey walked in without knocking, looking expectant. "Is it done?" he asked Sarah, barely acknowledging my presence. "Did she sign?" "She tricked me," Sarah hissed, gesturing wildly at the papers. She added some legal garbage that invalidates everything. Jeffrey snatched the documents from Sarah, scanning them with growing alarm. His face darkened as he read the final page that Sarah had dropped. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, turning to me. "Some kind of senile paranoia made you do this." "I would be careful with accusations of mental incompetence," I advised him calmly, "especially when I have documentation from my physician certifying my full cognitive capabilities filed with both my attorney and the county clerk's office." Jeffrey's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "Look, Jacqueline, there is no need for this to get ugly. We can work something out that benefits everyone. Sarah may have been a bit overzealous in her approach." "Overzealous," I repeated. "She lied to me and attempted to steal my home through fraud. I believe that goes beyond overzealous." "Mom, be reasonable," Sarah interjected. "You cannot maintain this property forever. We were just trying to help you transition while maximizing the asset value." "For whose benefit?" asked a new voice from the doorway. Amanda stood there, arms crossed, looking furious. Because it certainly was not for Mom's. I had texted Amanda when Sarah first arrived, asking her to come over around 1 o'clock, knowing that Sarah might make her move today. Amanda's timing was perfect. "This is a private family discussion," Jeffrey said dismissively. "I am family," Amanda replied coldly. "And from what I just overheard, you and Sarah were trying to trick my mother out of her home. The home my father built." Sarah whirled on Amanda. "Of course you would take her side. You are just hoping to get the house for yourself. Unlike you, I do not see our mother as a piggy bank to be broken open." Amanda shot back. "Mom is healthy and happy here. This is her home, and it should remain her home for as long as she wants." The confrontation was interrupted by my phone ringing. It was Thomas, on video call right on schedule as we had planned. I answered, turning the screen so everyone could see him. "Thomas, you are just in time. Sarah and Jeffrey were explaining why they tried to trick me into signing over my house to them today." Thomas's normally gentle face hardened. "Is everyone there?" "Good. Sarah, what the hell were you thinking? Mom called me weeks ago about your suspicious behavior, but even I did not think you would go this far. You do not understand the financial pressures we are under." Sarah protested, suddenly defensive. "Jeffrey's development deal fell through, and we are over-leveraged on the house. Jordan's college tuition is due, and Alicia needs a second surgery on her knee from the accident." "So your solution was to steal Mom's house?" Thomas asked, incredulously. "The home Dad spent years building and maintaining. The place where we all grew up." "We were going to take care of her," Jeffrey insisted. "She would have had a nice place at Sunny Pines." Against her clearly stated wishes to remain in her own home, Amanda pointed out. "A home that you plan to demolish for townhouses, according to what Mom overheard." Sarah shot me an accusing look. "You have been planning this ambush for weeks, haven't you? Turning my own siblings against me." "I have been protecting myself," I corrected her. "Something I never thought I would need to do from my own daughter." Jeffrey checked his watch impatiently. "This is getting us nowhere. The documents are invalid, fine, but the situation remains the same. This property is too valuable to just sit here. Jacqueline, be reasonable. We can negotiate a fair buyout." "My home is not for sale," I stated firmly. Jeffrey's facade of reasonableness slipped. "Do not be stubborn about this. You are sitting on a gold mine while we are drowning in debt. Your financial mismanagement is not Mom's problem to solve," Thomas interjected from the phone screen, "and I would advise against any further attempts to pressure her." Mom has taken extensive legal precautions based on your previous behavior. Sarah turned to me, her expression now desperate. Mom, please. We really do need the money. Everything Jeffrey said is true. We might lose our house. For a moment, I felt a flicker of maternal concern for my daughter's situation. But then I remembered the cold triumph in her voice. When she declared me homeless, her casual dismissal of the home her father had built with his own hands, her willingness to ship me off to a facility against my wishes for her financial gain. I am sorry for your financial troubles, Sarah, I said sincerely, but they do not entitle you to my home. If you need help, we can discuss a loan with proper documentation and repayment terms. A loan, Sarah scoffed. That would barely cover a month of our expenses. Then perhaps you need to reconsider your lifestyle and spending habits, Amanda suggested, like the rest of us have to do when money gets tight. Sarah grabbed her portfolio, stuffing the now useless documents inside. This is not over. Jeffrey's cousin is an attorney. He will find a way to challenge this so-called invalidation. He is welcome to try, I replied calmly. My attorney is prepared for any legal challenge you might bring. But Sarah, consider carefully whether you want to continue down this path. Legal battles are expensive, time-consuming, and in this case would permanently damage what remains of our relationship. What relationship? Sarah snapped bitterly. You clearly do not trust me. You set up cameras and legal traps instead of helping your own daughter when she needed it. I tried to help you throughout your life, Sarah, I said quietly, but I will not allow you to take advantage of me or steal the home your father and I created for our family. That is not help. That is enabling behavior that has clearly become destructive. Jeffrey put his hand on Sarah's arm. We should go. This was a miscalculation. We will find another solution to our financial situation. As they moved toward the door, Jeffrey paused, looking back at me with cold eyes. This is not over, Jacqueline. One way or another, we will get what we are entitled to. You are entitled to 1/3 of my estate, after my death divided equally among my children. As specified in my will, I clarified. You are not entitled to anything before that, especially not through fraud and misrepresentation. After they left, slamming the door behind them, Amanda hugged me tightly while Thomas watched from the phone screen. Are you okay? Mom Thomas asked, concern evident in his voice. I am sad, I admitted, but also relieved that the confrontation is over and my home is secure. Sarah might try again, Amanda warned. She and Jeffrey seemed desperate. Then we will be prepared, I said firmly. I have done everything legally possible to protect myself. The rest is up to them. As we sat in my living room that afternoon with Thomas on video call and Amanda beside me on the sofa, I felt a profound mixture of grief and gratitude. I had lost my relationship with my oldest child, perhaps permanently, but I had also discovered the depth of support from my other children and friends and found a strength in myself I had not known I possessed. Frank would have been proud of how I protected the home we had built together, and heartbroken at what our family had become. The weeks following Sarah's failed attempt to take my home were difficult. She and Jeffrey made good on their threat to consult with an attorney who sent a formal letter challenging the validity of my invalidation document. My attorney, Diane, responded with a comprehensive legal brief, outlining the clear case of attempted fraud backed by the video evidence and witness statements from Amanda and Thomas. The challenge was quickly abandoned. Sarah and Jeffrey's financial situation continued to deteriorate. Through Amanda, I learned they had been forced to sell their vacation property and one of their cars. Jordan deferred college for a year to work and save money. Their lifestyle of lavish spending and keeping up appearances had finally caught up with them. 3 months after our confrontation, Sarah called me. Her voice lacked the entitlement and manipulation I had grown accustomed to hearing. Instead, she sounded tired and subdued. "Mom, I owe you an apology," she began haltingly. "What Jeffrey and I tried to do was wrong. I was desperate and convinced myself the end justified the means. I am not asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging that I know what I did was unforgivable." "Thank you for saying that, Sarah," I replied, cautious but hopeful. "Apology accepted, though rebuilding trust will take time." "I understand," she said. "Jeffrey and I are seeing a financial counselor now. We have put our house on the market and are downsizing to something we can actually afford. It is humbling, but necessary." "Those sound like positive steps," I offered. "Humility can be a powerful teacher." Our conversation was brief but civil. I did not expect an immediate reconciliation, but it was a starting point. Sarah's journey back to financial and ethical stability would be her own, though I would support her responsible efforts where appropriate. Meanwhile, my relationship with Amanda and Thomas deepened. Thomas decided to take a 3-month sabbatical from his job and stay with me, using the time to digitize our family photographs and help me update my kitchen while preserving Frank's handcrafted cabinets. Amanda brought the twins over weekly for dinner, creating new memories in the home where she had grown up. Harold and I began spending more time together first, as friends supporting each other through late-life challenges, then gradually as something more. At 71, Harold was rediscovering joy after losing his wife to Alzheimer's 3 years earlier. We enjoyed simple pleasures, community theater performances, walks in the park, cooking dinner together in my kitchen. The most unexpected outcome of my ordeal was connecting with others facing similar situations. When I shared my experience with my book club, 3 members confided they had faced pressure from family members regarding their homes or assets. I realized how common elder financial abuse was, yet how rarely it was discussed openly. With encouragement from Diane and Harold, I started a support group at the community center for seniors facing family financial pressures. We met monthly, sharing stories and resources, inviting experts to speak about legal protections and elder rights. What began with 6 participants grew to over 20, creating a network of support and empowerment for vulnerable seniors. 1 year after Sarah's attempt to take my home, I celebrated my 70th birthday. The party was held in my backyard, with Thomas and David flying in from Seattle, Amanda and her family helping with decorations, and friends from throughout my life in attendance. Harold organized the event carefully, including all my favorite foods and music. To my surprise and cautious delight, Sarah came too alone, but bringing a thoughtful gift, a handmade quilt she had sewn herself over several months. It was not an expensive present like she would have chosen in the past, but one that represented time, effort, and genuine thought. Jordan helped with some of the stitching, she told me, as I unwrapped it, and Alicia selected the fabric patterns. We wanted to make something that would keep you warm in the home you love so much. The gesture moved me deeply. Sarah was learning difficult lessons about value and priorities. Our relationship remained fragile, requiring careful rebuilding, but the foundation was being laid. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, I found myself sitting on the porch swing Frank had hung the summer before he got sick. Harold joined me, and we gently swayed in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant orange and purple hues. "You have come through quite a storm this past year," Harold observed, taking my hand, and emerged stronger for it. "I wish the storm had never happened," I admitted. but I am grateful for what I learned through weathering it." "And what was that?" he asked gently. I considered the question carefully before answering, that we must sometimes protect ourselves even from those we love. That standing firm in your truth is not selfishness, but self-preservation. That boundaries are not walls, but the foundations upon which healthy relationships can be built. I looked around at the home Frank and I had created, still standing strong after 40 years, still filled with love and memories, despite the attempts to take it from me. Most importantly, I continued, I learned that home is not just the physical structure, but the sense of safety and belonging we create within it. No one can take that from you unless you allow it. As the stars began appearing in the twilight sky, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past year had brought betrayal and heartache, but also renewal and wisdom. I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed, and connections I might never have made had I not been forced to fight for what mattered most. My journey was far from over. Sarah's redemption path was just beginning. Thomas was considering moving back to be closer to family. Amanda's twins were growing into teenagers with their own dreams and challenges. Harold and I were exploring our unexpected late-life romance. Life would continue to present difficulties and joys, losses and gains, but in my beloved home, surrounded by those who truly cared for me, I felt ready for whatever came next. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to take advantage of you? What did you learn from the experience? Please share your stories in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe if you found value in my journey. Remember, sometimes the most important person to protect is yourself, and sometimes the strongest thing you can say is simply no. Thank you for listening, and may you find peace and wisdom in your own life's challenges.